Gaslighting is one of the most dangerous and destructive forms of manipulation. Unlike persuasion, which guides decisions, gaslighting attacks the very foundation of reality. It makes victims question their own memory, perception, and sanity. The manipulator denies facts, twists events, and insists the victim is wrong until the victim begins to believe it. Gaslighting is not just lying, it is psychological warfare designed to destroy confidence and create dependency. In this chapter, we will explore how gaslighting works, why it is so effective, and the devastating impact it has on victims. The term gaslighting originates from a 1938 play and later a 1944 film called Gaslight, in which a husband manipulates his wife into believing she is going insane by dimming the lights and denying it. The wife begins to doubt her own senses, relying entirely on her husband's version of reality. This story became the metaphor for a psychological tactic that continues to affect millions of people today. Gaslighting is not confined to fiction. It is a real and widespread form of abuse. Gaslighting begins with denial. A manipulator refuses to acknowledge facts, even when evidence is clear. For example, a partner caught lying may insist that never happened. A boss who promised a raise may later deny the conversation. A politician may deny obvious truths, insisting that reality is different. This denial creates confusion. The victim begins to wonder, did I imagine it? Did I misunderstand? Over time, repeated denial erodes confidence in memory and perception. The second tactic is twisting. Manipulators distort events, changing details to fit their narrative. If confronted, they may say, "You're remembering it wrong," or "That's not what I said." They may add false details, making the victim doubt their own recollection. Twisting is powerful because memory is already imperfect. Humans naturally forget details, and manipulators exploit this weakness. By insisting on their version, they gradually replace the victim's reality with their own. Dismissal is another weapon. Manipulators dismiss feelings, insisting they are invalid. "You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. It's all in your head." These statements make victims doubt their emotions. They begin to believe that their feelings are wrong or exaggerated. Over time, they stop trusting themselves, relying on the manipulator to define what is real and acceptable. Dismissal erodes emotional independence, making victims dependent on external validation. Blame is the final tactic. Manipulators shift responsibility, insisting that the victim is the problem. "You're the one causing issues. You're imagining things because you're unstable. If you weren't so difficult, none of this would happen." Blame makes victims feel guilty, believing they are at fault. This guilt deepens dependency as victims try harder to please the manipulator, hoping to fix the problem. But the problem is not theirs, it is the manipulator's strategy. Gaslighting is devastating because it is gradual. It does not begin with obvious lies. It begins with small denials, subtle twists, and gentle dismissals. The victim may notice something feels wrong, but it seems too small to confront. Over time, these small manipulations accumulate, creating a distorted reality. By the time the victim realizes something is deeply wrong, their confidence has already been shattered. They feel too weak to resist, too confused to fight back. The psychological impact of gaslighting is profound. Victims often experience anxiety, depression, and a deep sense of helplessness.
They may withdraw from friends and family, believing no one will understand. They may stop trusting their own emotions, relying entirely on the manipulator for guidance. In extreme cases, victims may even lose their sense of identity, becoming shadows of their former selves. Gaslighting is not just manipulation, it is psychological abuse that destroys the core of self. Gaslighting is not limited to romantic relationships. It happens in workplaces, where bosses deny promises or twist conversations to make employees doubt themselves. It happens in families, where parents dismiss children's feelings as nonsense. It happens in politics, where leaders deny obvious truths and insist that reality is different. In every case, the victim is left confused, insecure, and dependent. The manipulator gains power not by force, but by rewriting reality itself. Case studies revealed the devastating impact of gaslighting. In toxic relationships, victims describe feeling trapped in invisible chains. They cannot see the prison, but they feel its walls closing in. They begin to question everything, their memory, their emotions, even their sanity. This confusion is not accidental, it is the weapon. In workplaces, employees subjected to gaslighting lose confidence, productivity, and independence. They become obedient, fearing confrontation. In politics, citizens subjected to gaslighting lose trust in their own judgment, relying entirely on leaders for truth. These examples show that gaslighting is not just personal, it is societal. Why do people fall for gaslighting? The answer lies in trust. Victims often trust the manipulator deeply, as a partner, a friend, a leader, or a parent. This trust makes them vulnerable. When someone we love or respect tells us we are wrong, we are more likely to believe them. Manipulators exploit this trust, turning it into a weapon. They know that the closer the relationship, the easier it is to control. This is why gaslighting is so devastating in intimate relationships. The victim's love becomes the very tool of their destruction. Gaslighting also works because it exploits fear. Victims fear losing the relationship, the job, or the community. They fear rejection, punishment, or abandonment. Manipulators use this fear to maintain control. Victims comply not because they believe, but because they are afraid. Fear erodes independence, making victims obedient and submissive. Over time, fear becomes the prison that holds them captive. Recovery from gaslighting is difficult but possible. The first step is awareness. Victims must recognize the tactics: denial, twisting, dismissal, and blame. They must learn to trust their own perceptions, even when others deny them. External validation is crucial. Friends, family, or professionals can confirm reality, helping victims rebuild confidence. Journaling can also help, recording events to counter denial. Therapy provides support, helping victims rebuild identity and independence. Recovery is not easy, but it is possible. Every victim who recognizes gaslighting takes the first step towards freedom. Gaslighting reveals the essence of manipulation: control through doubt and emotion. Whether in relationships, workplaces, or society, manipulators thrive by rewriting reality. They understand that trust, fear, and love are powerful forces. They use these forces to bend reality, reshape perception, and control behavior. But once we understand the psychology behind these tactics, we gain the power to resist. We can see the invisible chains, and we can